First of all, know your shit, right? You need to know your stuff. Like, the people that say like, that they want to hire, like, I want to hire, someone for Instagram to bring me more followers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's noble, buddy. But no, like my followers are different than your followers, which are different than third-party followers, right? So like that won't work. Like,
Hi guys, welcome back to the EcomXFactor podcast. Today's guest is Jeff Mendelson, the host of the One Big Tip podcast. Jeff also runs a full-service digital marketing agency where he helps startups and businesses increase their profits. In today's episode, we talked about how to choose your projects, how to hire, and what is the special thing Jeff does in order to create a real connection with his team members, and much more. I'm sure you'll find this episode valuable. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Jeff Mendelson.
Welcome to the EcomXFactor podcast, where it's all about launching and scaling your business using sales funnels, automations, and smart marketing. And now, please welcome your host, the founder of EcomXFactor, Yaron Bin.
Hi Jeff, how are you doing?
doing great. And yourself, man?
I'm doing great. I must admit that before we went live, this was the longest period I ever spoke with someone before going live. So I'm thrilled because it means it's going to be exciting and interesting. So thank you for that. And can you share a bit about your background story before we start getting into the nitty gritty?
Sure. So my name is Jeff Mendelson. I have been a digital marketer now for about the past 15 years. And I got fired from my last job about 12 and a half years ago. So that makes me certified unemployable at this point. And basically what I've been doing is working with other clients to, I built up basically 5 facets of my business, which is website design, mainly on WordPress, paid ads, social media management, content marketing, and most recently podcast production, because I also have a podcast called The One Big Tip. So, I'm getting involved with a lot of different things that, basically most professional businesses need in order to get their message out there. So that's basically where I'm at right now.
Amazing. And did you choose these fields like gradually, or did it just evolved into doing all of this? Or
what happened was that in my corporate life, I had this, I was always really good at having mid-level corporate jobs, right? Where I would be like the pre-sales engineer or the top customer, technical support guy, things like that. And what would happen is in my corporate life, they would never give me enough work to finish out the day. So I would literally be done with whatever it is they gave me by about 11:30 in the morning. And I had nothing else to do. And it's not like you could just go home, and I'm not a smoker, so I couldn't just go outside and smoke, with all the other guys. So I started just teaching myself, like other things to do. Right. And what happened was around that same time, especially here in Florida, was that real estate was becoming really, really big. And I was like, oh, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. Right. So I went out and I got my, I got my license to do it. And then I realized very quickly that I had zero aptitude for selling real estate, but I made a really good website. Right. And that's really how it sort of started out. And what happened was, at first I was just, just screwing around, like build myself this, build myself that, whatever. And then I came across this one client that she had like 100 plus domains all done on Joomla, which is another content management system that used to be very good, but now it just sort of fell off to the wayside. Mm-hmm. So what happened was she had this developer that was just basically raping her on price. Right. Mm-hmm. Every little thing across all these 100 websites, he was just charging her hundreds of dollars to do. Mm-hmm. And what I did, and I took a look at, the amount of work and what she was doing. And I'm like, something, I'm going to give you one price and I'll manage everything.
Nice.
One price per month. And she said, okay. And I was like, okay, this is it, because now it went from, just, making $50 here, $200 there, whatever. Now it became a recurring thing that I had to answer to her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was and still the stuff that she was asking me to do was literally took me 30.5 seconds to change a password, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And, those kind of things are like really, really easy. So when I changed it, I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I still got the full amount. Right. I wasn't sitting there and I didn't charge her for 5 minutes of time. Right. Or 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's when I first realized, I can make a business out of this. I could really do something with that. And that was like the magical moment. Then it became a question of, when do you do it, right? Because it's never the right time. Mm-hmm. I had a baby on the way, just bought a house.
Yeah.
How are you gonna, it's like, do you go and you throw away your 9-to-5 job, with a job that magically deposits money into your bank account every 2 weeks, like clockwork, right? You throw that away. And ultimately, the decision was made for me. I got laid off, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not going back to this anymore. Yeah. And I haven't looked back since.
Nice. Okay, so congratulations again.
Thank you.
You think it's unique, the fact that you finished by 11:30? Because I think this is what the corporate job life looks like normally. Like, people finish very fast, and then they just,
I think it is. So... Right. So what happens is, there are a couple of things I could do. I could slow myself down, mm-hmm. right? I could, I could try to do other people's jobs, right? But, it's like every time I tried to break out, if I was a tech support engineer and I tried to do help out, the director of operations or whatever, I would always get bitch slapped back down to my level. No, you got to be down there. And I'm like, mm-hmm. All right, guys, listen, I'm done helping you. And, more importantly, I'm done building your dream, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's no, I want to do more. I want to contribute. And I saw, obviously there were some people, in the organization that I knew and respected and made good decisions, but others didn't, right? And I think we've all had those, where you just have these really idiot bosses that you're like, why is this person a director, mm-hmm. right? And then when I finally made director, I realized that it was no different, right? I was still getting my work done, before lunch. Yeah. And it's like, well, I got to do something because I can't just sit there and twiddle my thumbs. So I started teaching myself new technologies, right? And that's how I landed on content management systems. I taught myself how to program PHP, figured out MySQL. It's like, these are things I had a basic aptitude for, but I just sort of leveled up a little bit, and I did it all on company time. Mm-hmm. And what would happen is people would walk past my desk and think that, oh my God, this Jeff, he's really busy, because I would just be, fingers on keyboard the whole day. And then I started winning awards, right? And I was like, oh, Jeff's the most productive employee of the month and all this. And I'm like, wow, if you guys only knew the quarter of it. It was not happening, and I was just like, all right, and that's really when I started getting disillusioned, with corporate life. It's like, listen, I get it. It's, it's good training. It's, everyone needs a job, but at the end of the day, once you get that focus of, I got to start doing something for myself, mm-hmm. that's when everything changes, because you get out of that mentality of, just being subservient to, whatever company you're working for, and you can actually branch out, like you, that you moved, that you're not in your country anymore and you're being a digital nomad somewhere else. It's like, I'm able to do that now. Why? Because I invest in the technology. I have a dual SIM iPhone. I have an iPad. I have a good laptop. I can do this from anywhere, mm-hmm. right? And what happens is that, why do I need a business telling me that I need to be in Miami at a certain time, fight traffic to go to some soulless office that everything's battleship grade? It's like, no. Mm-hmm. No, I want to do something else. And that's when I started getting, right about the same time, that's when WeWork started becoming up and coming, right? So now we have 5 WeWorks just here in Miami. Uh-huh. And it's really influenced a lot of the places where I travel to, right? Because it's like, that's the first thing I check. Like, oh, I'm going to go to Berlin. How many WeWorks are there? Right. So, once I know that there's a WeWork there and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's where I'm going to go. And what happens is I don't miss a beat, right? I don't even tell people anymore. Oh, I'm going on a plane, like I'm going, how people put the out of office. I haven't used out of office in years, right? Simply because you don't need to. If they want to call me, they can call me. If they want to email me, they can email me. We're all so interconnected and just about everywhere we go in the globe. Why not? Right. And, that's the way I've been living my life right now. COVID notwithstanding, of course. Right. So COVID just sort of grounded me. Last year, I managed to get every stamp, every page in my passport stamped.
Nice.
Right. And that was a big achievement. Where was I? Oh, geez. Went to Brazil a bunch of times because my wife is from Brazil. Went to Israel, to Portugal, to Germany, to England, to Argentina, Uruguay. I took my kids to Hong Kong and Japan.
Nice. So
been to Thailand, Turkey.
Wow.
I managed to get around. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool. So you mentioned, on one hand, you mentioned the word focused, and on the other hand, you said that you're multifaceted and you have like 5 channels. So I'm wondering, how do you handle all of this? And is there like a process, or what exactly do you do in order to keep clarity and stay focused?
So focus is a funny thing. I'm really glad you picked that up. So, I mean, let's just zoom out for a minute. So first of all, just doing marketing, right? Everyone says like, oh, I need marketing help. Okay, great. What kind of marketing help? It's like if someone needs search engine optimization on their website, for their business, right? That's a whole skill set of things that you need to do, right? But if I don't have the contract also to revamp their website, there's only so much SEO I can do in order to make that, website work. So it's like, I used to do that. I used to take those kind of projects, but then I was like, I'm not really being very effective because your website is still from 2007, right? And the same with paid ads, right? If you spend all this money to bring all this traffic, but if your website basically has a go away sign because there's no call to action on it, well, that also sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And really what I started doing was turning down these one-faceted projects. It's like, oh, I just want SEO and that's it. It's like, no, sorry, I can't help you, right? Because if I can't control all the other steps that are needed in order to make that effective, I really don't want anything to do with it, right? It just becomes an exercise in frustration. I'll probably have the client for 6 months to a year until they realize that I'm not that effective, and then they go away, and it's like, and then I can't really chalk up a real effective, I did it type thing. So that's really why I got into, why I have these different facets. Now, website design, between you and I and the rest of your listeners, it's the thing I like the least, right? It's, the more my fingers are on the keyboard, the more I have to sit there and go source stock photos and, put stuff together, things like that. And like, yeah, I would rather not. But, that's why I've been moving more towards sales funnels now, because, you can think of them as, mini websites, that sell things, or that, that capture a lead or whatever it is. Right. And, then I can still work on those other facets, which do excite me. Right. That that are really interesting to work on. And, to answer your question of how do you do it? How do you focus? Well, that's having some decent processes in place. That's having some decent people in place, and also being choosy about which clients I take on, right? If I bring on a client that I just get a feeling that they're not going to be a good fit, or they won't get me the information that I need on time, things like that, then I'm not interested. I move on. I've developed a really strong spidey sense for that, where I'm able to, no, I better not touch this guy, and move on. And I think both of us are happier for that.
Yeah. Great. I have a quote that I mentioned. I think almost every podcast I mention it, or at least think about it. but it's also relevant for this. So what I'm using, like the mantra that me and my wife use, is if it's not a hell yeah, it's a fuck no. So
exactly.
if
Hell yeah, or get away.
yeah. So I thought this would be relevant. Before we dive into the processes, which I found very interesting, and I'd love to hear more about it. So just a technical question. You mentioned sales funnel. So what are you using? Are you using WordPress with sales funnel or ClickFunnels or anything like that? Or
So I've dived into the ClickFunnels world over the past 2 years. I have created sales funnels in in WordPress, also ActiveCampaign. You can create landing pages. I mean, a sales funnel is really just a generic term,
yeah.
right? And to get somebody, a targeted person from point A to point B. So really, what technology you use it for. It really can be anything. It could be an HTML site if you code it correctly, right? It's just that these tools that are available. So now ActiveCampaign has a really good landing page editor, right? And you can get some really good people to code you up a page in ActiveCampaign very, very quickly. ClickFunnels has a little bit more of a cachet to it, since it is a more expensive product, and but also it has Russell Brunson cheerleading everybody. Right. So, you got to read the books, and you got to, you join the cults and all that. So that's a lot of fun.
The books are amazing and Russell is amazing, but I tried ClickFunnels, I think, for 3 times. Every time I left ClickFunnels, I said, I'm never going to go back. Then I was convinced by the marketing, and then I realized why I said I'm never going to go back again. 3 times I gave them a shot and never enjoyed using their platform.
You know what it is that, so you're probably more of a WordPress guy, right? And, with WordPress, you have more control. Like you can choose the theme, you can choose this, you can choose that. And where everything is already, right? Because you've been using it for years.
Yeah.
And then when you try to do that, when you try to apply that into the ClickFunnels world, you're constantly okay, I know how to make a pop-up in WordPress. I can do it in 10 minutes and I'm done. And then you spend 30 minutes looking for it in ClickFunnels and it doesn't look right. And then you want to code it and it's like, oh, but that's in 16 other places that you need to go, and you get frustrated, right? It's like, I could have been done with this if I would have done it in another technology.
Yeah.
Right. On the other hand, if you can get yourself into a more templated role where, the aesthetics and the programming really take a backseat towards getting it done and getting it out there and just creating offers every day.
Yeah.
Then you can really crank out those pages much faster. It really just depends on, A, your skill level, B, your patience, your tolerance for that kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay, how am I going to get this done? So yeah, I mean, I definitely feel you, but also it's, it's an acquired taste. So you need to be able to, you should enjoy it, before you go all in.
Yeah. And you said something interesting. So basically what you mean is ClickFunnels, in your opinion, is more scalable in a way, because when you want to clone, you can just, once you have a few funnels that are already producing good results, are already built in the way you'd like them to be built. So then you can just duplicate the funnels, which is going to be easier. This is what you're saying, basically?
You can. And, depending on the type of theme that you're using in WordPress, you could probably do it just as easy, right? I mean, you just have to know where to make the changes, how to, change where the URLs and all that. It's, what it is? It's the difference between French and English. Right. They're both Latin languages. They're both from the same thing. I mean, do I speak French? No. I speak Spanish. I speak Portuguese. Right. So when I go to French, it's like I hear words that I think I understand. Right. Because it's still part of the same family. Right. But then it's like, okay, you sort of figure it out. Right. Then you go to someplace like Turkey. Right. Turkey, it's like, everything's written in in a Latin script, but when they talk, it's just, I don't know what the hell is that, right? It's just the words have nothing to do with what's written down. Yeah. And when you get into a situation like that, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a much harder language to learn, right? And that's kind of the way I view all of this stuff. And really, what happened was, very early in my career, I tried to master all of this stuff, And then I just realized I couldn't, right? So then I just zoomed down. I'm like, you know something? I'm going to zoom in on WordPress. And I zoomed in on WordPress, and that was it, to the exclusion of everything else. And that really helped me become more productive. It made my team more productive as well, because I wasn't driving them crazy like, oh, okay, here's a Magento site. I need you to go figure this out now.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, no, you know, like with WordPress, it's like we know where everything is. We know where the templates are. We only use like one or two templates, right? Out of all the websites that we create, we only use one or two templates. So that means that we know where everything is. We know where all the support is coming from. We know where all the quirks are. We know how to get around those quirks very easy.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
Cool. So regarding project management, I'm going to go back to the question to the topics that we talked about before. So about creating like project management and how to prioritize and how to handle a team. So can you share like which tools are you using today and the frameworks or best practices in regards to project management?
Sure, a couple things. So first of all, I use teamwork.com. Right. And the reason why I was on Teamwork, you know, if you go back a little bit, I was using Basecamp, the first version of Basecamp. The first version of Basecamp was actually really good. You know, they did it, I think, on Ruby on Rails, and it had good time tracking, and it was like I had everything down. And then Basecamp made a decision, you know, that, OK, we're going to rebuild the thing from scratch. And if you're on Basecamp 1.0, you're welcome to stay there, but we're not touching it anymore. And then this new version of Basecamp didn't have time tracking. And I was like, well, wait a second. I pay my people via time tracking. Like, what the hell? Right. So I needed to find a way to get, you know, to move them off. And I ended up on Teamwork, which has been very good to me over the past 6-7 years now. Yeah. You know, I've seen that application grow, and it grows nicely, and it's got a nice design language, and like everything's great. The tool is only as good as how well you manage it.
For sure.
Right. So a couple of things. First of all, I don't care whether you're across the street or halfway around the world, you are remote to me, right? Meaning that we're not going to sit at a coffee place or at the water cooler or have a meeting in person. You're remote, right? I mean, right now you're this 4-inch square, you know, picture, you know, on my screen, you know, you're not flesh and blood until I fly to where you are, you know, in order to really have lunch with you, right? So that's first thing, you know, like as soon as you recognize that, you know, these people are remote, you have to communicate differently, right? So I tell everybody, you have to be verbose. You have to over communicate. You can't just say, yeah, it's done. No. How did you do it? Like, you know, put it in the notes of the task, you know, put it in, you know, exactly where you want things like that. The other part is having standard operating procedures, right? So for example, you know, if we get a client where we're producing, you know, like 1 post a day on social media and 2 blog posts a month, we have a procedure for that, right? We have a procedure for choosing the topics for that particular client, you know, what the writer needs to do. After the writer's done, what does the project manager do? And what does the social media person do? So there's like this whole chain that goes around, and it's documented, right? So for the next month, when we create the, you know, the set of tasks, you know, the workload for the next month, right away, there's a, you know, in the description, there's a link. Here's the SOP for it.
Yeah.
Right. So so there's no excuse. Everyone knows what needs to be done, when it needs to be done by, because, you know, we built all that into, you know, into the process that we're doing, you know, every day, every week, and every month. And I think the third part is, you know, and this is more personal, which is why I got all those stamps in the passport, was because I made an effort to fly out and meet the people in person that I work with.
Nice.
Right. And that changes, right? Because that changes everything, right? Because it's like, you know, if you're dealing with someone in the Philippines and you're dealing with someone in, you know, in Thailand or in Mexico or in Argentina, wherever, you know, like nobody really, you know, like, even you and I, you know, like we're working, you know, COVID really helped with this, right? Is that, you know, we're working from home. We don't have so much interaction anymore. We're not going to conventions anymore. We're not really going out. So once I made that human connection, invited them for lunch, you know, shook their hand, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's a different relationship. right? I am now at the top of the list anytime I call for anything, right? I am now, also it comes down to, treating people the way they want to be treated,
Yeah, for sure.
paying them on time.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, that's a big one, right? Because not everyone pays on time, right? So, you got to make sure you're paying your people first, and you have to make sure that you're attending to their needs. I mean, we also keep like a master calendar of every country's holidays,
Nice.
simply because, whatever holidays are in Georgia aren't the same that are in Israel, and certainly aren't the same that are in Argentina, right? So, they're just all over the place, and these are all things that you have to manage and you have to know about. And then what happens is that, when I wish someone, a happy St. Augustine Day, in Argentina or whatever it is, right? It's like, whoa, wait a second, you knew about that? It's like, and they appreciate it, it's like they appreciate it almost from wherever you are, so it's really more than just writing a what do you call it, an SOP and just saying, go do it, right? There's got to be some kind of personality in there. It's got to be fluid. It's got to be mendable. If, say, for example, if you use Hootsuite instead of Buffer, to post something, right? Well, then now you got to change your SOP. But I'm not the one who should necessarily be writing it. The people who are actually doing it should be writing it and amending it and making sure that it's up to date, right? So, it's that whole mindset of service deliverability, right? Where you're delivering a service, you're delivering a product, and you want that product to be consistent, right? And, it's got to go through some checks. It's got to go through some QA. And once it's posted, someone else needs to look at it, to make sure that it posted correctly, so all of that stuff is baked into our processes at this point.
I love the idea of going and meeting people in person, because it's not even a hack. It's just on one hand it's obvious, but nobody does it, so it makes so much sense. So
it does, and something. It's it really spreads good karma. Right. Just bottom line, it just spreads good karma, because what happens is, and I ask these people, how many of your clients have you actually met in person? They all just sort of like, oh, geez, I don't know. No, I think you're the one, and, because it's like, well, who's going to fly to Cebu City? Who's going to fly to Montevideo, Uruguay? I went to Santa Fe, Argentina, which is not Buenos Aires. I had to take a plane from there, just to go meet these guys. And it's like, why is there a big development company, Argentinian development company in Santa Fe, Argentina? And it turned out because there's a huge technical college there that they go and they poach all the newly graduated engineers on the cheap, right? Nice. So it's like, okay, yeah, good enough for me. Live cheap, and, you get these people in, and, they rented like two houses next to each other, these two really big houses, and, and they're still only charging like $20, $30 an hour, for really intense, developments. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm keeping these guys. I'm not going anywhere.
So do you hire based on the places that you want to go visit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Not necessarily. So, I was telling you in the pre-call that I just hired this woman who is in Tbilisi in Georgia, right? And at first I was like, I never hired her in Tbilisi. I didn't know anything. But then when I met her, when I actually got her on the Zoom call, like her English was nearly perfect, right? Just had a very slight accent. I mean, everything that she wrote to me, I couldn't find not one spelling mistake. And then it turned out she lived a year in Boise, Idaho, which is, one of the most American places you can go, right? Nice. So like what happens is, I don't know if you've been here, but like in South Florida, in, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, we're the capital of Latin America, right? So we have a lot of people here that do not speak English. They only speak Spanish. And the fact of the matter is they can. Because you can go into a bank, you can go into a government office, you can go to the local supermarket and not use one word of English, right? That's actually very common here. Yeah. And, when I try to, really what I'm looking for the chemistry. I'm looking for, obviously, that you can do the job. I do sort of look a little bit at the country and the infrastructure that's around there. It's like, I don't want to hire in, like in Venezuela that now has rolling blackouts all the time. Yeah. It's like, I'd love to. They're in my same time zone. They're only a 2-hour flight away. right? But it's, if I can't rely on them,
Yeah.
then that's just not worth it, right? Like, I'm not going to do it. So, going back to this girl from Tbilisi, it was like, it became a no-brainer. And the more I work with her, the more I'm like, I'm not letting you go. Like, dude, you're staying with me, because it is so, it is so convenient, to work with someone who's, so highly educated, came in at a good price, is pleasant to work with. And it's like, okay, great. Yeah. I try to build these relationships for the long term. And I'm definitely planning a trip there as soon as we can, because, Georgia's one place I haven't been yet, and I would love to go try it out. So.
Awesome. Great. And do you hire from Upwork, or what do you use, FreeUp or Upwork, or?
So sometimes from Upwork. I've gotten to the point now where I've moved most of the people that I work with off of Upwork.
Yeah, for sure.
So that I'm cutting my own deals with them, because what happens is, I get charged a fee for the amount of work that I'm giving them, but they also get charged a fee for getting the money that I'm paying into. So basically Upwork charges both sides.
Yeah, I know.
And listen, I get it. That's what they're in business to do.
Yeah.
But when they, when they try to, when I try to cut a better deal with them, I have to make sure that I'm doing it within Upwork's, terms of service. I need to make sure that I'm doing it with, also that I'm making a presentation that makes sense for the person that I'm presenting to. How am I going to get the money over to them? Can I pay them with PayPal? Do I need to wire it to them? Or do I use Payoneer or whatever? So, these are all logistical questions that you need to answer. Yeah. Right. But at the end of the day, it's like, if I can easily get you paid and get you out of there, and I don't have to do a lot of paperwork or walk to the bank every single time, then, it's definitely better for me to do so.
Cool. So what is your number one tip for hiring?
My number one, there is no one tip. I'll give you a couple very quickly. First of all, know your shit. Right? You need to know your stuff. The people that say that they want to hire, I want to hire, someone for Instagram to bring me more followers. That's noble, buddy. But no, my followers are different than your followers, which are different than third-party followers. Right? So that won't work. If you really think that you're going to pay someone $10 an hour to get you 10,000 followers in 3 months, don't you think they would have done that for themselves 2 years ago already? Why would they even need you?
Yeah.
Right. It's just that, that kind of thinking, just boggles my mind. So know your stuff, know what you want, right? And be able to articulate it, be able to put it out there and say okay, I need you to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And, I tell people during the interview, if you're deficient on 2 and 3, that's fine. I can train you on that. Yeah. Right. But just, be honest. Don't tell me that you know it and then not know it and screw it up. And then that takes me double the time to go fix that screw up. Right. So, and that all starts with me, by the way, not the person. Right. So, you really do have to know your stuff. You got to know what you're hiring for, and you have to know how to manage them. The other side, for me, chemistry is very, very important. Right. I have to go to bed at night feeling that they're going to be able to do the job without my intervention, while they're doing it. Right. Because most of the time, these people are in, 7, 10, 12 hours ahead of me. Right. I'm sleeping at 2 a.m. while they're doing it at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to be able to help them out in real time. So I need to be able to trust that they know exactly what it is that they're doing, at that time. Once we get that, once we get that part out of the way, it's the chemistry, right? It's do I like working with this person? Right? Is this person argumentative? Are they just a yes man? Yes, sir. Right away, sir. I don't like yes people, right? It's if I throw them an idea, and it's dumb and they have experience with it, I expect them to speak up, right? And I tell them all the time, I'm like, please be the bitchy girlfriend, or please be the person that, to keep me in check, right? Because sometimes I'm not always going to be perfect. I mean, if they're already doing, for example, getting Instagram followers, for 10 other people, fine. But I need to be able, I would expect them to also bring their expertise to the table as well. And third is try not to scrape the bottom of the barrel. It's like if you find a VA for $10 an hour, I'm sure you can find somebody for $7. And if you can find someone for $7, I'm sure there's a bunch of people, in the Philippines that will do it for $5. That's great, right? Good on you. But what is the quality of the work you're going to get out of these people? So don't just look at the price, right? And, frankly, just between you and I, if you can't afford $10 an hour, for someone to do a critical part of your business, then there's something wrong with your business that's got nothing to do with your VA.
Yeah.
Right. Then you're not charging enough. You are not you're not bringing in enough business in order to cover that. That is a serious reflection on your deficiency, and it's got nothing to do with the Philippine or Argentine that you're gonna hire. So
nice.
I'll give you 3.
This is like mic drop. Mic drop, because this is
just mic drop. It's salvation comes from within, right? But no, you really need to make sure that, your business needs to be in order before you go and hire someone else. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Your business needs to be in order. You need to know what you want out of this person. Don't just expect them to come over and do, and just do stuff. I mean, if you want somebody to really handle and do the thinking for you as well, now you're in OBM territory, right? Online business manager, which is fine, right? But now you're in $50 to $100 an hour versus $5.
Yeah.
So, just know what it is that you want and know what it is that you need and be able to articulate it so that they can convey it to the other people.
Nice. This was short but to the point, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jeff. Where can people reach out to you, hear more about you, connect you, see what services do you offer?
Sure. So the best way to reach me is at my personal website. So it's jeffmendelson.com, JEFFMendelson.com. I also have my podcast on there. It's called The One Big Tip. So, you can listen to industry leaders talk about their one big tips for their businesses. And, look me up on LinkedIn and, you'll see all the experience and, the lives that I'm doing and, the other content as well. So those would be the best places to find me.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Been great, man. Thank you so much for having me today.
Bye. Take care.